All right, I think we'll start. We'll let everybody catch up if they're hopping on. Just a reminder that both congregations for the church are meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock. You're asked to bring a chair and meet in the church parking lots of Kirkabo and of Nora at 7 o'clock on Monday to hear the recommendations of the call committee on calling a pastor to serve your two congregations. So we're hoping that you can make it, that your voices can be heard, you can hear the information that the call committee has prepared, and then vote to make a decision on getting a pastor for your two churches. So hopefully you can make that. That'll be a great time and fun to see everybody. We'll still be practicing social distancing. We're doing it in the parking lot so that there's space for everybody to do it, but it'll be fun to have everybody back together. All right, so as you know, most of the time I write my midweek devotions on Sunday nights, and Sunday nights used to be my favorite night of the week. It was the one night where I allowed myself to really just take it easy. I didn't do anything. I kind of just sat around. I didn't do anything physically and mentally to prepare. I just kind of let myself veg out on Sunday nights to just kind of get myself built back up to start the next week. Well, things have changed obviously since this pandemic began, and I continue to work from home, and it seems like most days run together, and oftentimes I wake up with the alarm every morning and wonder, what day is it and what do I have going on? And I can't remember any of that stuff, and I'm sure many of you can relate as well. So as most of you have heard by now, I have this new fun and naughty little puppy that continues to be the love of my life right now. He also continues to be the terror of many moments when he bites and chews on everything. And after a wonderful, wonderful day of potty training, to my horror, he can look right at me in the face and have an accident in the middle of the living room floor. Truly, I feel like I'm dealing with a toddler most days. Although a toddler can verbalize his wishes, Asher just looks at me with those darling eyes, and I melt instead of being mad at him. I've talked to you many times, many of you guys, about your pets. You all heard when I lost my Thessa, and I had such a hard time with that, and you've watched as I've got Asher, and I know Sandy lost her pups, and we've all talked about different dog stories and how important they are in our lives. So it might not be too much of a surprise that after this introduction, that I'm going to, that I picked the story that I did for this week. This story is called Cookie's Secret Life, and it's written by a woman named Candace Chappell. The story goes like this. We live almost a half a mile from the nearest paved road, surrounded by woods and fields with only a few homes cut into the miles of green. It was always quiet when we adopted our golden retriever Cookie. She soon changed that. She would charge out the door every morning at dawn, pushing one or both children aside and trampling a cat or two. And then she would go roaring into the woods, barking and galloping, almost prancing like. Sometimes she would come back when I hollered, but mostly she ignored me and returned later on her own schedule, wagging her big feathery tail. I could tell she was trying to look regretful, but her overall body language was always of absolute glee. I kept threatening to track her to see where she went all the time, but I had two small children and zero interest in getting out of my PJs that early in the morning. Well, finally, one day, I saw her picture on Facebook. She was on a back deck that wasn't ours. She was enjoying a snack with a big guy who wasn't mine, and outside of a ranch house that wasn't ours. What is this, I wondered, and I asked her, and she said nothing. Of course, she's a dog. The neighbor was due north, accessible only over a fence through a vegetable garden. It was a blow to my ego. I always wanted to get a photo with my dog, but Cookie had refused every selfie I had tried to take with her. Well, the disappearances escalated. Just when I'd assumed she was having a cold one with strangers next door, she'd come loping down our long driveway from the opposite direction. Finally, that fall, I tracked her. We have a community walking trail in the woods out back. It's a combination of our property and the neighbors, and has turned into a nice meeting place for the neighborhood dogs. It was early, and I followed Cookie out the door on a whim in my rattiest sweatpants, my husband's oversized sweatshirt, and a pair of slippers. And the grass was still wet with dew, but I was determined that I was going to follow that dog. About 5 paces into the woods, I encountered another neighbor. Roger looked unforgivably dapper as always. He turned to Cookie as if I didn't even exist, a nod of respect to my state of dress, I'm assuming, and looked right at him and said, "Greetings, Cookie." "Well, hello, Savannah," I encountered, patting his dog's head. We had an entire conversation through the dogs. "What is that you said, Savannah?" "She says she loves your new siding on your house." Well, finally, I went back inside with Cookie and accused her of taking walks every morning with Savannah, but without me. And again, she said nothing. Well, the very next day, I got a call from Barb, a neighbor up front. A little worry went through me. We weren't the type to call and just chat. "Hello?" I asked, quickly running through how to do CPR in my head. But no, that wasn't necessary. She said, "Do you realize your dog has been here all day?" "All day?" I said. Oh dear, the last I'd seen Cookie, she was barreling out the back door at dawn, headed for Savannah. To my credit, I was so busy working that I was still dressed in last night's thinking outfit. "Well?" Barb asked. I just cringed. What would she say next? She said, "Can Cookie stay for dinner?" I heard Barb popping open a can of soft food. I stared at the day-old dry food that I had put in Cookie's bowl and hung up. Cookie wasn't losing her appetite after all, as I had feared. Just a note, my neighbors have never asked me over for dinner, by the way. Finally, I had a chance meeting at the grocery store with another neighbor, Mary. "I'm worried," she said as we walked out the parking lot together. "What's happened?" I asked. "Well, I haven't seen Cookie in a week," she said, bracing herself for a moment. "Is she okay?" We'd been on vacation. Cookie had been gone for a week, but so had our entire family. Mary hadn't noticed that at all. But before I could answer, she saw my car and its occupant. "Oh my Lord, you have her right here," she said. "Cookie," she squealed. I had to open the back hatch, not to put my groceries in, but to allow Mary and Cookie to have a reunion. "Now hold on," she said. She produced a dog biscuit about the size of Cookie's head from her purse, and Cookie went crazy. "Well, thanks, Mary. See you back at home," I said, giving her the heave-ho. The pieces were coming together, but first I waited her out so I could go back into the store and buy gigantic dog biscuits and soft dog food, the best money could buy. It was becoming apparent that I would have to woo my own dog. Finally, I had my answer. My dog had a secret life. She was taking walks and eating meals and scoring dog biscuits at 5 houses that I knew of. Hey there, for those of you that were watching the video tonight and lost me, unbeknownst to me, the sun was too hot on my phone and my phone said it needed to shut down because it was too hot. So I guess that we should just be able to shut down when we get too hot as well then, right? I am going to read the story from the beginning so everybody can hear it. And then I'm just sitting by a tree out of the shade or out of the sun. I'll hold up a picture of where I'm at tonight. Well, actually, I don't have it with, so I'll go walk over to where we're at the end. So let me start my story again. I wrote my message on Sunday night, and I wrote it, Sunday nights are usually my quiet night, my night that I sit down and just kind of relax and veg and kind of get myself prepared for the next week and what's coming. And that's kind of changed since the pandemic, partly because every day kind of seems the same. When you're working from home, I find myself waking up to the alarm clock and thinking, wait a minute, now what day is this and what do I have to do and all that kind of stuff, and it's just kind of crazy, and I'm sure you all can relate to that. So as I mentioned to many of you before, you all, many of you knew that I lost my dog of 11 years a couple months now ago, and then I got a puppy named Asher. You've seen him on video a couple of times and stuff, and he's been such a joy, but he's also just in that naughty puppy stage, biting and chewing on everything in sight. So he's just naughty. You can have a wonderful day of potty training with him, and then he can look you straight in the eye in the middle of the living room and just have an accident on the floor and not think anything of it. And he's so darn cute, it's hard to get mad. So it's just kind of funny. But anyway, so it isn't going to be a surprise then that I picked the story that I did. It's a story called Cookie's Secret Life, and it's written by a woman named Candace Chappell. The story goes like this. We live almost a half a mile from a paved road, surrounded by woods and fields with only a few homes cut into the miles of green.
Hang on, I don't have my screen, so I'm having to play with the wind here. It was always quiet, but when we adopted our golden retriever Cookie, she soon changed that. She would charge out the door every morning at dawn, pushing one or both children aside and trampling a cat or two. Ugh. Then she would go roaring into the woods, barking and galloping and almost prancing away. Sometimes she would come back when I hollered, but mostly she ignored me and returned later, on her own schedule, wagging her big feathery tail. I could tell she was trying to look regretful, but her overall body language was clearly absolute glee. I kept threatening to track her to see where she went all the time, but I had 2 small children and 0 interest in getting out of my PJs that early in the morning. Finally, one day I saw her picture on Facebook. She was on the back deck of a house that wasn't ours, enjoying a snack with the big guy who wasn't mine, outside a ranch house that wasn't hers. "What is this?" I asked her when she came home, and she said nothing, of course. I mean, she is a dog. The neighbor was due north, accessible only over a fence and through a vegetable garden. It was a blow to my ego. I always wanted to get a photo with my dog, but Cookie had refused every selfie I had tried to take with her. The disappearances escalated, but just when I'd assumed she was having a cold one with strangers next door, she'd come loping down our long driveway from the opposite direction. Finally, that fall, I tracked her. We have a community walking trail in the woods out back. It's a combination of our property. Hold on, I gotta switch pages here. Our property and the neighbors, and has turned into a nice meeting place for the neighborhood dogs. It was early, and I had followed Cookie out the door on a whim in my rattiest sweatpants, my husband's oversized sweatshirt, and a pair of slippers. And the grass was still wet with dew, but I was determined that I was going to follow the dog. About 5 paces into the woods, I encountered another neighbor. Wow, somebody needs a muffler. Roger looked unforgivably dapper as always. He turned to Cookie as if I didn't exist, a nod of respect to my state of dress, I think. "And greetings," he said. "Cookie, how are you?" "Well, hello, Savannah," I countered, patting his dog's head. We had an entire conversation through the dogs. "What is that you said, Savannah?" "She says she loves your new siding on your house," Savannah said. Finally, I went back inside with Cookie and accused her of taking walks every morning with Savannah, not with me. Again, she said nothing. Well, the very next day, I got a call from Barb, a neighbor from up front. A little worry went through me because we weren't the type to call and just chat. "Hello?" I asked, quickly running through my mind on if I remembered how to do CPR. But no, it wasn't necessary. She said, "Do you realize your dog has been here all day?" "All day?" I said, stalling. "Oh dear." The last I'd seen Cookie, she was barreling out the back door at dawn, headed for Savannah. To my credit, I was so busy working that I was still dressed in last night's hiking outfit. "Well?" Barb asked. I cringed. What would she say next, I wondered. She said, "Can Cookie stay for dinner?" I heard Barb popping open a can of soft food. I stared at the day-old dry food in Cookie's bowl and hung up. Cookie wasn't losing her appetite after all, as I had feared. Now, just a note, my neighbors have never asked us over for dinner, but now she was asking the dog to stay. Finally, I had a chance meeting at the grocery store with another neighbor named Mary. "I'm worried," she said as we walked out the parking lot together. "What's happened?" I asked. "Well, I haven't seen Cookie in a week," she said, bracing herself for a moment. "Is she okay?" We'd been on vacation. Cookie had been gone for a week, but guess what? So had our entire family. Mary hadn't noticed that at all. But before I could answer, she saw my car and its occupant. "Oh my Lord, you have him right here! Cookie!" she squealed. I had to open the back hatch, not to put my groceries in, but to allow Mary and Cookie to have a reunion. "Now hold on," she said. She produced a dog biscuit about the size of Cookie's head from her purse, and Cookie went crazy. "Wow, thanks, Mary. See you back at home," I said, giving her the heave-ho. The pieces were coming together, but first I waited her out so I could go back into the store and buy gigantic dog biscuits and some soft dog food, the best that money could buy, because it was becoming apparent that I was going to have to woo my own dog. Finally, I had my answer. My dog had a secret life. She was taking walks, eating meals, and scoring dog biscuits at 5 houses that I knew of. I got home and reported my findings to my husband, and we broke the news to our kids together. Cookie had another family. In fact, Cookie had several other families. But they were delighted. It was like finding out that we had a celebrity in our midst, and it turned out to be the beginning of something wonderful. We followed Cookie to all of the neighbors' house after that, and the friendships blossomed for us too. Our neighborhood that was once sprawling and separate became connected and approachable thanks to Cookie the Golden Retriever and her secret life. I love that when I walk her now, I know everyone, or I should say, everyone knows her. But if I see one of the neighbors set up a fan page for her on Facebook, I think I'm going to draw the line. Isn't that such a cute story? And to be honest, it's really almost the reality of my life the last couple weeks with the addition of Asher to our house in our neighborhood. No, I don't let him take off and hope he comes back like Cookie did yet, at least not yet. But he sure has become a welcome addition to the neighborhood that we have of young families and even older neighbors. I have lived in this neighborhood now for 28 years. It's a wonderful area, a few blocks south of Moorhead State, and still has some beautiful old trees that form this glorious shaded canopy down our streets. I've watched most of the original owners of these neighboring homes either pass away or move to nursing homes, and therefore watch as young couples become new families with babies and pets galore. I have to admit, with my crazy schedule and multiple jobs, I struggle with really getting to know my neighbors very well, and oftentimes our interactions have been simply a wave as I head out for the day or I come back home down the street to return home. Well, that was until Asher came to the block a few weeks ago. Asher, like Cookie from our story, has brought neighbors out to meet him as I attempt to walk him a bit down the sidewalk. Kids come from both ends of the block to see him, and of course Asher eats up the attention like crazy. He's reminded me of what it means to be a good neighbor, what it means to listen to what others have to say about what is happening in their lives, and what it means to form relationships with those who are near you. Our Bible reminds us of what it means to be a good neighbor in some of its verses as well. James 2:8 says, if you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. Romans 15:2, let each of us please his neighbor for his good to build him up. Or Matthew 7:12, so whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Or how about Luke 10:27, and he answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbors as yourself. Luke 6:31, as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Galatians 6:10, so then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. And Matthew 22:37-4, and he said, you shall love the God with all your heart, with your soul and your mind. This is the great and first commandment, and the second is like this. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, and of these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. Or Hebrews 13:1-2, let brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have intertwined angels unawares. Obviously, I am not suggesting to you all to go out and get yourself a puppy. In fact, if you want to borrow mine anytime, just to consider seeing what it's like to lose your shoes and your furniture and your toes and your fingers to the sharpest little teeth, just let me know. What I am suggesting, however, is that you take a moment and find a means in order to connect with your neighbors, whether a physical neighbor or a friend or a relative that you may have lost track of or have not spoken to for some time. God wants us to be good neighbors and keep those connections. Reach out to those around you to form relationships and connections with, and most importantly, to share the love of God and the gifts of his promises with those that we meet. Let's say a prayer. Loving Lord, help us to be a good neighbor. Help us to take a moment to intentionally find a time to reach out to those that we have in our neighborhoods and in our lives. We know that you have said that this is important to you, and we need to sometimes be nudged a little and reminded a bunch when we find ourselves keeping to ourselves or not sharing our lives with those around us. May we find strength and peace through you to make that connection and be a good neighbor as you have asked. Amen. Well, I'm going to get up from my tree here and do a little walking so I can show you where we're at. I got to get the papers that I threw on the ground here. All right, hang on a second. First of all, where I was last week was I was at MSU. It's right behind the Center for the Arts building. and it's a sculpture of a hummingbird. I got papers flying all over. Okay, it's a sculpture of a hummingbird. It's really beautiful, and right now the construction that's all being done around MSU and Concordia requires you to go buy that sculpture all the time. So it was fun to see. A lot of people had said, wow, I know where that is now. I would have never known it if it wasn't for the construction, so that's kind of neat. So tonight I am in Moorhead again. This one I mentioned when I was on for a few minutes earlier. This one I found when I was driving around, and I was so excited when I saw it because the cross is, I'm going to switch. Can I switch it? No, I can't. I got to go this way. Okay, the cross, I got to go this way so you get out of the sun. Jeez. Okay, there it is. This cross is exactly the same as one that is at Luther Seminary. And it's one that we took pictures with every time we were on campus. Pretty much every seminary student does. And then what's even more neat is there is a plaque on the bottom. Let me head over there. That says it is from a replica of a Celtic cross which stands in the churchyard in Lyon, Nordford, Norway. The original cross was emblazed before 1995 AD, and it's a gift from Reverend and Mrs. Moldrum. And Ariel Moldrum was my pastor in my hometown church when I was growing up at Our Savior's in North Moorhead. So that's really cool. So remember to send in your guesses to the church. You can either call and leave them on the message or voicemail 218-861-6541, or send an email to the church at pearlyparish@gmail.com. Send them in by Tuesday so we can get you on the list. And once again, I apologize that we're having to do a video instead of live streaming, but I was in the sun too much. I'm sorry for that, and I'll know better next time. So have a great week. We'll see you Sunday morning at 9. Don't forget, congregational meeting 7 o'clock on Monday at both locations in the church parking lot. Bring a chair. Bye-bye.